Pay attention to the man in the frame. He is trying to appear calm, hiding a terrible truth that will only be revealed in the next few seconds.
I guess it's a real mess, isn't it? It wasn't supposed to go like that. I don't know what to tell you.
In broad daylight on August 13, 1996, a calm, almost whispering, Gary Simmons films himself inside an electronics store in Mobile, Alabama. Customers browse. Clerks work. No one knows he's a suspect, on the run.
I never think about the consequences of what I do until after it's done. But that's what happens when you cross the line. You pay for it. I guess it's time. I love you.
35 miles away in Moss Point, Mississippi, officers sprint toward a house after an 18-year-old Brook Weber pounds on a neighbor's door, hysterical. They shot him! Inside the home, spotless rooms, no blood, no struggle, except for a human-sized box. Behind the property in the bayou, officers make the discovery that will haunt the state: 88 pieces of human remains drifting on the surface. The most horrific crime in Mississippi history seemed like it would never be solved, until an 18-year-old girl came back from the dead. She made the killer pay, and from then on, people called her the girl in the butcher's box. To understand how we got here, you start in 1996 in Houston, Texas. Jeffrey Wolfe, 21, an all-American kid like dogs, football, motorcycles, lives with his dad, Pasquille.
He was an all-American guy, he really was.
On August 11th, Jeffrey walks in with a grin and a surprise.
I was sitting at the house, and they drove up and introduced her. That's my new girlfriend, Brooke. She was a beautiful young girl.
They had only known each other for a few weeks, but the boy had fallen in love immediately, and they even planned to go out together. And the plan, a road trip to Mississippi the next day. August 12th. Jeffrey hugs his father goodbye and heads out to pick up Brooke.
That's the last time I heard from him.
Hours later, in the pre-dawn of August 13th, Jackson County deputies get a frantic 911 call. A young woman banging on a stranger's door, clutching a kitchen knife, begging for help. When police meet her, she's in shock, repeating, "They shot him." She points across the street. Inside the house, she pointed to everything as if it had been erased. There was only silence and a box lying alone in the middle of the room. While Brooke was being questioned, the police expanded their search toward the dock and the house, looking for the man she said had been shot. There were drops of blood on a boat. Had the body been thrown into the water? In the shallows, they found a stained axe. The suspect, Gary Simmons, was nowhere to be found. Gary Simmons, who police have identified as the prime suspect in the case, remains missing. The only clue was Brooke, and she knew what the box was made for. Brooke begins her account. Morning of August 12th, 1996.
Jeff and I had just met. We were still in the honeymoon phase of our relationship where everything was perfect. He was real charming and sweet and cute. It was a business trip. We were going to make a fun time out of it, but we were going to collect money.
By the time they pull into Simmons' Moss Point place, the sun's down.
It was dark, and we pull up and there's not a porch light on. So that kind of was like, why don't he have the porch light on? He knows we're coming. And that man, Gary Simmons, he was sitting on the steps. And he looked kind of creepy to me. But Jeff had told me that these were his friends, so I didn't question it. I wish I would have asked questions that day.
Gary welcomed them into the house, served them drinks, and they chatted in the kitchen. Brooke sat at a nearby table, letting the two men discuss business matters that she had no interest in. The conversation, she said, was casual and friendly, no signs of conflict or tension.
I thought that they were just going to have a discussion and then it would be done. That's when I heard the gunshots.
Then, gunshots. Jeff jerks and collapsing. Behind him stands a younger man with a gun, Timothy "Tim" Milano. Brooke had no idea anyone else was there. Panic detonates.
I was like, oh, I'm going to die. I was so scared.
He reforces her into another room, restrains her, and locks her inside the box.
It was the scariest moment of my life. I didn't know what they were going to do to me. And that's when Gary came around. He took me out. And I was basically told how well I performed sexually, determined if I lived or if I died. Then he raped me and put me back in the box. It was dark, and you're just in there alone with your own thoughts and fears, just praying for a way out. I didn't think I was getting out of that box.
The next day, August 14th, a woman named Lori opens a package at work. Inside, a VHS, the same mall monologue we saw. Gary talking straight to camera.
Hello, Lori. I guess it's a real mess, isn't it? It wasn't supposed to go like that. I guess it's time. I love you.
Lori is Gary's wife, and she knows this isn't a love note. It's a warning flare from a man she fled years ago. The crimes at Moss Point have deeper roots than anyone realizes.
The house still creeps me out. And I have not set foot in there in 27 years.
6 years ago, it all started with Lori. August 11th, 1990. Lori marries the daycare groundskeeper she thinks is a gentle soul. She met Gary about 10 months after her first divorce was finalized. Lori had 2 children of her own, and Gary was working as a groundskeeper at their daycare. After their wedding, they moved into the house.
I remember reading stories, and I don't know if he let me read that to gauge my reaction or my interest in what he had written. I told him, that's not pleasure, that's torture. And he says, well, these are my fantasies. He said, I have secrets you know nothing about.
After their daughter is born, the mask slips.
When he would want to be intimate, I told him, no, he can't. It's not time. It's too soon. You have to wait. And he said, that's not going to happen.
That very night, it happened.
That was the very first time Gary raped me.
She never thought Gary, the husband she trusted, would do such a thing. She rushed to the bathroom trying to wash everything away, but no amount of water or soap could wash away the dirty feeling that clung to her soul.
One of the stories that Gary wrote was about a box, and it was for a person. I was in the kitchen when I heard this noise and this banging. I seen he's got this huge box.
While Lori had not yet come to her senses to understand what was happening, the real nightmare had only just begun. One day, Lori decided not to be silent anymore. She confronted Gary, hoping for answers. But he didn't get angry, didn't raise his voice, just remained coldly calm. And then, in that moment, Gary knocked her out. When she opened her eyes, Lori found herself restrained and unable to move. Gary stood over her, his eyes blank.
I asked him, let me go. Please untie me. I'm not a fan of this. He told me it was not about me. This was not about me. And I was petrified. I thought I was dying that night. This was one of the fantasies that he had written about. If I made a noise, if I twitched or flinched a little bit, it aroused him. He enjoyed the pain and the agony that he was causing.
Gary covered Lori's eyes. She was terrified, listening to his footsteps echo slowly on the floor, mixed with creepy teasing. Lori felt the cold metal brush against her skin, making her hold her breath. Every small movement could put her in danger, and Gary continued, as if testing the fear in her covered eyes.
And I was petrified. I thought I was dying that night. This was one of the fantasies that he had written about. If I made a noise, if I twitched or flinched a little bit, it aroused him. He enjoyed the pain and the agony that he was causing.
Was one of his sick fantasies. Lori remembered it clearly. If she made a sound, if she flinched, he would be aroused by her pain. She tried to hold her breath, to stay still, but her silence seemed to frustrate him even more. When she held still too long, he tore the veil from her face and whispered, "Well, that's not fun anymore."
Did not want to become any of the other stories.
The police say she lacks proof. The state says she can't divorce while pregnant.
There was no way for me to prove anything that happened.
Lori sought a divorce and contacted legal services for advice. She detailed the abuse, hoping to find a way out, but the response she received was cold, one that made her realize she had to fight it alone.
She told me that in the state of Mississippi, you can't get divorced when you're pregnant. I said, well, I'm not pregnant.
The state required Lori to take a pregnancy test before finalizing her divorce. She did, but the results devastated her. She was pregnant. The thought of spending another year with Gary, trapped in constant fear, nearly suffocated Lori.
I wanted this to be over. And it wasn't only me, it was my kids and the danger that I not only put myself in, but I put my children in, I put people in that I love.
Desperate, Lori turned to domestic violence organizations. She was pregnant, 3 children, jobless, and penniless. She had only 2 diaper bags and 2 old suitcases. Eventually, she was helped to find a small apartment, a place where she thought she could start over. But Gary wasn't gone completely. He maintained contact with Lori's younger brother, Timothy, like a dangerous thread that hadn't been severed. Summer 1996, Tim moves in to help with Lori's children.
He had moved in with me for that summer so he could tend to his nephew and nieces to help me out.
Late at night, around 11 o'clock, Lori and Tim were sitting in the kitchen. Then suddenly, a knock echoed in the silence at the door. Lori turned around. It was Gary standing outside. Tim steps out to talk.
I did not know that they still spoke. I did not know that they even had a relationship. Comes back in. Gary needs my help. I said, you have no business with that man.
He hugs her. I'll be back in an hour. Around 3:30 a.m., after more than 4 hours of waiting, Lori realized her brother still hadn't returned.
Gary had an answering machine and I left a message. And then I called Gary's home again. And then the third time, the answer machine didn't pick up. The phone literally just rang and rang and rang. I literally just put the phone down and I just let it ring.
At 3:30 a.m., Lori starts calling Gary's house. An answering machine picks up, then stops picking up. Somewhere else in that house, Brooke lies trapped inside the box, jolted awake by the ringing phone.
I heard the answering machine come on, and I knew nobody's there. And I was thinking in my mind, I was like, if you're ever going to get out of here, now's the time.
In the room, she heard the phone ringing, but no one answered. She realizes this is the moment. She grinds and twists until the rope loosens, braces her back against the lid, and forces it open. The room is scrubbed clean. No sign of anyone. She grabs a butcher knife and runs.
Because if they were coming in when I was going out, I was going to gut them. Period. Because they weren't going to kill me. I was not dying that day.
She sprints across the street and hides in the neighbor's yard.
And I ran. I ran so fast. About that time, I looked up and Gary Simmons pulled back up at the house.
Brooke freezes, trembling behind a bush. She didn't know if Gary had noticed, but she was shaking. A single thought echoed in her mind. This was the end. Gary would find her, and this time she wouldn't survive. But when Gary entered the house and found her gone, he didn't turn around to look for her. Instead, he got in his car and drove away. Brooke choked up, finally free.
They were finding body parts that led to the bio.
Brooke knocks, the neighbors take her in, and deputies arrive minutes later. She's taken to the sheriff's department. It was here that the truth was revealed, with Jeffrey's body.
He put his arm around me and he said, they ain't gonna let you see Jeffrey. I say, ain't nobody gonna stop me from seeing my son. Nobody. He said, Bubba, they cut Jeffrey up in 88-something pieces. They're looking for his body parts now. So I just fell over on the edge of the bed and I cried and I cried and I cried. Why they did that to my boy, I don't know. I never thought I'd have to bury him.
Back at Lori's apartment, August 13, Tim finally returns. He's glassy-eyed, checked out.
He's not there. It's almost like he's checked out. I stop and I think, oh God, what has happened now? What has Gary done to my family now? I look at to me, and he said, I had to do it. I had to help him because he threatened you and the girls. The last time I laid my eyes on him was outside my apartment when he was being taken away.
The man who pulled the trigger on Jeffrey was Timothy Milano. Hours after Brook escaped, Timothy turned himself in. For Jeffrey's father, hearing the news was a personal betrayal because he knew the boy. Jeffrey had brought Timothy home, asked if he could stay for a while, and he, with a father's trust, agreed.
I was sick at my stomach. I thought I'd done the boy a favor by letting him live in my house for 3 or 4 weeks. I washed his clothes, I fed him, I put a roof over his head, and I took him to the store a couple of times. And he repaid me back by shooting my son 7 times in the back and twice in his chest.
Police say the two killed Jeffrey Wolfe of Texas in this house 2 weeks ago.
Simmons also was accused of raping Wolfe's girlfriend and imprisoning her inside this box.
When she heard about Tim's arrest, Lori was devastated. She couldn't believe her brother was involved in the crime that had taken place in their old house in Moss Point. But her fear was even greater. She didn't know where Gary was or what he planned to do next. Next day, on their wedding anniversary, Gary committed another crime. Lori could only shake, wondering if he was coming for her. Then a package arrived at her workplace. When she opened it, she froze. Inside was a VHS tape, and it was from Gary.
Hello, Lori. I guess it's a real mess, isn't it? It wasn't supposed to go like that. I don't know what to tell you. To my way of thinking, I didn't have much of a choice. I mean, I'd already taken his money. There's no excuses. There's never been an excuse for any of the things that I've done. There's never been any excuses for the way I've treated you. I never think about the consequences of what I do until after it's done. But that's what happens when you cross the line. You pay for it. I guess it's time. I love you.
Hours later, Gary calls police and turns himself in, arrested just blocks from Lori's workplace.
It's a murder officials call the most grisly in Jackson County history.
Authorities say Simmons shot Wolfe, cut up the body, and scattered it in a nearby bayou.
October 11th, 1996. A grand jury indicts Gary Simmons and Timothy Milano for the capital homicide of Jeffrey Wolfe. Trials will take another year, and to secure any conviction, prosecutors need the one person Gary never planned on, the 18-year-old who escaped the box.
I'm the only living witness. If something would have happened to me, they would have probably got away with that. That's why they tried to have me killed from prison. I never felt safe after that. Ever.
August 25th, 1997. 1 year after the murder, the trial begins. Brook Weber, now 19, takes the stand. The last time she saw Gary Simmons, he was forcing her into that box. Now, he's only a few feet away, calm and cold, watching.
I was so scared. My whole body was shaking. My hands were like this. And I'm talking not a little bit. And I would try to sit on my hands, and then my legs would go. I couldn't make it stop. I was scared. But Jeff's parents were there. They were right there. And I knew if they could sit there and take it, I could sit there and I could make sure that Jeff didn't die in vain. He wasn't going to die. And just these people were going to get away with it.
August 28th, 3 days later, the verdict comes. The jury needs only hours. Guilty on every account. Guilty of causing the death of Jeffrey Wolfe. Guilty of holding Brook captive. Guilty of the violent act that followed. Timothy Milano, the trigger man, is convicted too. Life without parole. Gary Simmons is sentenced to capital punishment, but for Brook, that verdict isn't freedom. It's a life sentence of her own. Fear that he might still find a way to reach her. She changes everything, her name, her hair, even her voice. She dyes her blonde hair dark, keeps moving from place to place, never staying long enough for Mel to catch up. She's not just hiding from Gary, but from his family, terrified they'll blame her for sending him to death row.
I was terrified of Gary's family. I thought that, maybe Gary and Lori were high school sweethearts and I just ruined their perfect marriage. You know how many years of my life I lost? Running from this, hiding from this. I lost myself.
It's now 2023, 27 years later. Brooke is 45, a mother, still haunted but ready to face what she's been running from. The producers at Investigation Discovery tell her someone wants to meet her. It's Lori Simmons, Gary's ex-wife. Brooke hesitates, unsure if it's a trap or a chance to heal.
I want to heal. I want my power back. I want to know, are you going to hurt me? Are you going to come after me?
I need to look her in the eyes so she knows Brooke is my hero. Hi, Brooke. Hi, I'm Lori. I'm Brooke. Can I hug you? Sure. It's very nice to meet you, Bonnie. This is so crazy. It's crazy. So you want to come in? Sure. Okay. I owe you a debt of gratitude. You are my hero. You might not believe that, but you are. And we have thanked God for you every day since you've escaped. I have 4 children who are grown because of you. I am here today because of you.
I never looked at it that way. You kind of make it okay now.
It's nice to know she's as strong as she is. What she's given me, is closure and a debt that I could never pay.
I just feel like I was put there on purpose so that they didn't get away with it. I'm not ashamed of it anymore. It doesn't define me. I am Brook Weber, period. I'm not a victim anymore. I'm a survivor of a violent crime, and we're going to make it through it.
They are now behind bars, but the scars they left never faded. For Brook Weber, survival meant starting over. Name, face, voice. This true crime documentary isn't about murder. It's about endurance and how light sometimes emerges from unthinkable darkness. If you believe stories like this deserve to be told, hit like, share, and subscribe for more true crime documentaries that keep the truth alive. That concludes this story. Remember, everything shown here was intended to inform and promote awareness about real-world law enforcement. None of this is for shock value or sensationalism. Stay alert, stay safe, and learn from what you've seen today.